Hello YouTube, this is SybilznBitz back at it again with a continuation of our Arcanium run. Full disclosure, this video is going to seem very scuffed due to the fact that I was so excited to finish this run. I ran about as fast as I could to get home through the snow like Bilbo Baggins ready to go on his adventure in The Hobbit. Finally finished the run. Turns out my mic shorted and I didn't check it before I did the run, so I got absolutely no commentary in the run. But I'm going to voice over my commentary that I did for the run and try and keep on top of it. Right now, I'm telling you guys about how I'm not actually feeling very good on this run. And it's going to sound weird because we've been absolutely bodying. Like, we just got done with bodying that shard battle, right? But as I'm showing here, our primary defensive mechanics right now are slow and blind. And the deal is that this is very good in normal fights throughout the game. But as I'm sure I'm about to show right here, crowd control effects do not work on bosses at all. You can taunt bosses, but you cannot blind, slow, you can't stun bosses either. And since our primary defensive mechanics right now is blind and slow, we're very strong in battles now, but eventually we're going to have to ramp up our defenses to actually take damage. We're also going to take a look at the boss. Here we're looking at this boss's minion, the boss that we're targeting pretty much with this run. These sun discs give the boss 25% damage reduction each, and they are no slouch on dealing damage themselves. So it makes it very hard to like face race the boss when he's getting all this damage reduction, and in the meantime they're dispelling our buffs, they're dealing decent damage, shielding the boss, and then of course their ulti there, which on this difficulty is -1 fury. So every other turn they're going to multi-strike 4, deal 6 damage to us, and it's going to deal a lot of damage, and we have to solve for this. Otherwise it's just going to be absolutely brutal. We're also taking a look at his phases, I believe. So he's going to cleanse all debuffs, so we can't utilize Hex in order to deal a ton of damage to him. Gain stasis after 4 hits on a turn. That's actually not a big problem. And then, of course, Golden Skin gain immune upon being hit. Which, immune, as we described in the last video, is just negating one source of damage. So he's very one-shottable, but the problem is that Mozebus takes up a ton of time in order to build all that overcharge, in order for us to use Orb of Annihilation. So in the meantime, we got to deal with these sun discs. And again, that's a problem that we're going to need to solve. And that's not even counting the final boss, right? Akan. We're going to have to solve for him too. And we don't know which version of him we're getting. I try and take a look at the other boss here to tell you why we're not going into there. She has a mode where she reflects all damage dealt. I think it's actually like 50%, but she reflects damage. And her minions will heal her for 25 every turn. 1 in each lane, so she heals 50. So she's much more face raceable. But it's a lot more difficult because her and her minions are just going to keep stacking poisons. We've got no cleanse. If we find cleanse, we might choose to go for that one instead. Here, I'm looking at everything that we have here, because I do recognize that we are able to just absolutely smatter these shard battles. So I'm looking at the kind of upgrades that we want to get. Pretty much everybody wants AP. So And I think I even say right here, we've got 4 action points, and Slice and Dice costs 4 action points. It'd be nice to have 5 action points just so that we can use 1 red card and get 2 might. And have that activate 3 times, because that's going to be a lot of damage, especially with our Brass Knuckles combo. I have absolutely no idea what I'm trying to show you guys here. Probably talking about the Orb of Annihilation being our win condition. Which, if you saw the last video, you know that that's pretty much what we're going to have to do. So, at this point, I'm saying that we're going to try and hunt down as many shard battles as we can. Obviously, we're also looking for shrines, relic shop, campfires to use after relic battles, or shard battles, sorry. And we've got a lot of money, so we can throw that around as heals. We can buy whatever relics we want. And here I'm trying to uncover all 3 of these tiles to see what's there, so we're going to go into this battle. But again, if we can cover shard battles fine, this battle's not going to be a problem to us. The reason why we're hunting down these shard battles is because they're worth 3 experience each, so they're going to be the fastest way for us to level. And if you remember our last run, we only really leveled 3 times. So having the ability to level this much is actually a huge boon. I also think that I point out here that I figured out the reason why our minions were just staying alive longer than they should. And that is because whenever you use Aegis Potion, it counts all allies, including our minions. And for whatever reason, the minions will only take 3 damage, despite them having 9 health because of the potion. It's almost like it gives them 2 extra lives, which is very good for us, considering that minions are our strategy for scaling our vulnerable from a lady. So I believe I even say here, like, we've got the perfect potion setup actually due to this, because we've got the spare minion, we've got the draw from Mozebus, and then we can keep our minions alive even longer using the Aegis potion. You're just able to see how much damage we're able to throw out. And as you guys may have noticed from the last video, it takes me a while in this video to realize it. We don't even have an heirloom on Lady right now, which could be that double might heirloom that she has, where every red card we play, we gain an extra might. Instead of 1, we're gaining 2. So we've been playing with very minimal damage this whole time. But as I described earlier in the video, damage isn't really the problem we have right now. It's the fact that we actually have to figure out how to realistically tank a boss. I mentioned that drawing Orb of Annihilation here is feels bad, man. If I didn't, I do now because kind of suffer. The one problem with one-shot builds is that you have to have everything line up perfectly. The vulnerable has to be on the enemy. Maybe you're also looking for power. And then on top of that, you have to wait till you actually draw the card that you're looking for if it doesn't retain. Okay, so I'm looking at all of these cards. I'm considering picking up Fierce Roar because it taunts in an area and has shield steal. Slice and Dice I mentioned here isn't upgraded, so grabbing a second copy isn't really that good. But Fierce Roar has Bolster, so it's likely going to cost 3 AP, and it has that shield steal, which is the most important thing. All of our cards that we've been grabbing so far just taunt to us, and then we take damage. If we can actually get Fierce Roar to pop off, we're also gaining 18 shield on top of it, assuming that there's no resistant enemies involved. Otherwise, I mentioned that Boomerang Toss is actually very good. Main reason being this Echo. So it's able to go back into your hand after you play it. And I'd have to keep testing, but I'm pretty sure this actually just makes a copy of the card instead of actually returning the card to your hand. Because I've drawn multiple... I've played with Boomerang Toss before, and it's come into my hand like twice. Which didn't really make sense. As in, I drew 2 Boomerang Tosses when I only had 1 in the deck. But that might have just been me misunderstanding. We don't take Boomerang Toss here, so that's not this run. Found a nature shrine, which I point out is actually the worst shrine that we could possibly find, because none of its outcomes actually necessarily help us. But we do get vitality, which is good. Here I'm explaining that Thorns isn't very good for us because we've got nothing else that deals with backlash. Or maybe I'm talking about vitality now, but I'll go ahead and just talk about Thorns. So, if you have 1 backlash, like that's fine. You're going to deal 1 damage to any enemy that attacks you, but if they have a multi-attack, then they're going to deal probably 2 or 3 damage to themselves, maybe 4. That's still not good, considering the fact that you're also taking damage, and we don't have defense. If we had a relic that actually scaled off of backlash, or cards that scaled off of backlash, that would give this more value to us. But the best thing that happens is a boss AoE multi-strikes and then hits himself for 9. Again, we don't want to take that. I would much rather have the 8 extra health than just a smidgen more damage. Because again, damage isn't our problem now. I also talk about recovery. Heroes revive with 10 health. That's a very weird boon because, I don't know, like, I guess if you're losing and dying a lot, that's technically healing, but not something that I think is sustainable. Talk about this loot cache, and about how earlier in the last video, I was talking about, well, I don't really want to open loot caches. This one I'm perfectly fine with, because it's going to give me access to that elite. Now this is a very interesting screen. I think I actually sat on this one for like 20 minutes. talk about how Milady has this card Slice and Dice. Might affects it 3 times. I also talk about Hunting Rifle. If you would have gotten this early in the game, this could have been our engine for Milady, because of the fact that you can just build AP on her instead. Blow through all 3 of your cards because she's a low-cost character. You'll run out of cards on the 3rd card. If you have your ulti, you can pull up the ulti. It's now the last card in your hand, so then you go ahead and you chunk with the ulti for another crit, and then if you have the fencing boots, you'll draw another card and be able to crit with that. If it's also a dash, then you'll draw another card and be able to crit with that. So you sort of give yourself a, not necessarily, it's definitely not an infinite, right? Or a nigh infinite, but you can just dish out like almost always critting. We take Wooden Targon though, because I mentioned that he's got, that Mozebus has a slot open, and our entire win condition is making sure that Mozebus doesn't die. So giving him this is the best move. Then go into upgrade cards, because we're hunting shard battles. We want to just be able to destroy them as easily as possible. Looking through all of our options here. Here I talk about Void Tear. And of just pretty much how Arcane Barrage is better. They both upgrade to 12, but Arcane Barrage just requires anybody on our team to play a blue card, which is much easier than making sure that we have 2 overload for critical damage. Besides, the first card in our hand crits anyways, so using upgrading Void Tear isn't going to give us as much output as Arcane Barrage. We go for another upgrade. I believe this one we go for Ice Barrier, because I would just rather have an upgraded Ice Barrier than upgrade Runic Shell. We get to this event. So I spend like the first half a minute here explaining how I've hit this event so many times, and this second option, add 1 threat, duplicate an artifact of your choice, never works for me. I have not gotten it to actually work, even if I have 1 artifact, making sure that it's not a legendary artifact. It will never allow me to duplicate an artifact, so we just don't take it because we know it's bugged. Otherwise, you can't equip 2 of the same artifacts, so it's not like we could have grabbed another Brass Knuckles and put it on Milady. So we're duplicating a card of our choice, and I'm looking at my options here. I'm honestly surprised that I don't take Arcane Barrage or the Arctic Barrier. Force Pulse, I talk about, it's a good draw engine, which if our idea is to get Orb of Annihilation as soon as possible, drawing through our deck as soon as possible is going to be very helpful. I don't know what I mentioned about Light of Dawn. I would never want 2 of those. But I'm obviously saying something here. Do I even hover over ice barrier? That would be very good to have 2 ice barriers. I don't know if I mentioned a second Orb of Annihilation since it's our win condition, but we're pretty much going to have to wait for it anyways. I could see the reliability of having 2 Orbs of Annihilation, but it's also just slowing everything else down we're trying to do. I think we take Fierce Roar because we were just talking about how Leon is the weakest member of our team right now. And so he just needs to taunt things and take damage off of Mozebus, and having 2 of these is going to help a lot. That might be what I'm just talking about here. Is having 2 Fierce Roars. It's going to give us a lot of defense. I'm now talking about how much time I have. I want to hit both of these shard battles. And currently, since I don't want to pop that campfire, our shortest distance is this card pile here. And as discussed before, Leon is the weakest member of our party, so we go ahead and we grab 3 cards for him. And I'm very happy to see Divine Aegis. Again, as I mentioned before, blind doesn't work on bosses, slow doesn't work on bosses, so I need to figure out a way to tank bosses. And immune in an area will even help me tank the splash damage portion of bosses. Like if they decide to hit me for, like, say 21 in an area, that's going to take care of it. And it has retained, so I can use it when I need it. Here I talk about Reckoning. It's a very good card. The problem is that the only person in this game right now who has access to blind, except maybe Misty, is Leon. So he's stuck by himself. He would have to blind something and then hit them with this in order to get the crit. I then mentioned that because it has the retain keyword, there is an artifact that will take any cards with retain at the end of your turn and reduce their action cost by 1. If I had that, I could definitely use Reckoning, but right now I can't. I would pretty much have to get a Shield Toss and Reckoning in the same hand, and you don't want to have a damage combo that requires exactly 2 pieces to be in your hand at the same time. Especially when with Leon, I think we only have... Do we even have 3 draw? We have 3 draw. Do we have 4 draw even? It's very unrealistic. Once we got here, we realized that our path to the shard battles were cut off because that battle is blocking us from going into the other card pile. So we have to figure out something to do, and I think we just go south to Uzir and take that fight. Or we take this one, either or. I'm probably mentioning here that it's early in hard difficulty, or Act 3 as I call it, so they might be a little bit spooky. Here, I see that the reward is a shrine, and I'd like that, but the 2 backlash on the enemy is a huge problem, especially if you take a look at his ability there. Any damage that I deal that is less than 10 will deal 0 damage to him. Take a look at all of his other abilities too. He makes sure that we can't block, and he does a lot of multi-strikes to us. So I consider just fighting him normally and not boosting him. I don't know what I tell myself, but I eventually convinced myself that we're going to go ahead and give him the thorns. A weird thing about this game that you may have just noticed there, if enemies have backlash and you play a card on them, you still get hit by the backlash. But if you have backlash and the enemy doesn't deal damage to you, they don't take the backlash. The fact that that's a bit binary kind of irks me. Perfectly fine with taking this damage. I actually do. That's weird. I guess to keep the minions out? I was pretty sure that I just ate that damage. Huh. Again, here just talking about how it feels bad that I have Orb of Annihilation with only one overcharge. Surprised that I decided to take that damage too. That one at least made sense. Man, past bits is weird. I think I totally just misplayed the hell out of that turn. Orb of Annihilation would have done more damage. Then here I try to reduce the Jackal's damage down to 0 and then realize that I cannot. Rip. Then of course the minion attacks him, takes the 2 backlash, and then takes the multi-strike and dies. So I just spent all my resources. Realizing that I had to play a blue card before I use Arcane Barrage. Do damage. Now I have Orb of Annihilation, so it's done. So this reward screen pretty much gives us what we need. As stated before, Leon is the weakest member of our team. We just gave him a shield seal card. Even if we can't do that, 1 health every turn is pretty good. Here I talk about how good Electroshock is, especially because Leon can't get vulnerable because of the fact that he has that, I believe it's called Jade Totem, can't have status effects, so he would get that 1 power for free. However, he doesn't really do a lot of damage, so we decide not really to go with that. So it's a decision between Bladestorm and Whirlwind, which then becomes a question of, do we really need to apply vulnerable in an area, or do we need a cheaper slice and dice that's unfortunately blue? Because that's really the only advantage that Bladestorm has over slice and dice, is the fact that it costs 1 less, and it is blue. Otherwise, slice and dice multiplies our might, which we're hoping to get energy in order to gain might, so that it can deal a lot of damage. We eventually pick Bladestorm here. Here we got a couple more interesting options. Netherstorm's also good, but we don't need it for this team. I'm looking at Grasping Bog here because, again, we need to figure out our sustain and defense. And Grasping Bog giving Leech in an area. What Leech does is every time that you hit an enemy with Leech, you gain that much life back. And so even if people are just, like hitting once or twice, that's 6 healing on a turn that Mozebus uses as skill. So we're taking a look at what we're actually going to get rid of for this, and it's probably going to be Arcane Missile, I'm guessing. And then, of course, if we combo it, it gives vulnerable. That's not really a big deal for us. Now, we're looking at this card here with Execute. Execute will instantly kill any non-boss enemy that is brought below 25% of their maximum health after this attack. It's incredibly powerful, but again, damage isn't our issue. Otherwise, I think I mentioned that I would love to actually use this in a deck, but we got it too late for it to actually be useful to us. And of course, like I said before, we're looking to gain a energy or an AP on Milady, so that she can get all 5 of her AP every turn. That will enable her to use a red card and then use Slice and Dice and just deal a ludicrous amount of damage. I debate taking the Dispel here. Money isn't really a problem for us to take Detection. Dispel removes all buffs on an enemy. If that last fight we would have had the Dispel, they never would have had the Thorns, and we would have taken very little damage. But we choose to go for the weak instead because the boss that we're going up against doesn't really get buffs like that. I don't know why I'm looking at those runic shells. I think here we're just looking for a card to put in here so that he can upgrade his ulti. And I'm pretty sure that we decide on a Crusade Strike because, again, Reckoning, even though it's 3 for 12, that's a good rate. It's decent, but we don't want it to also retain and clog up our hands. We don't want to use 3 action points on Leon to deal damage because his job is to tank. Maybe in another run, Leon will be our damage dealer, but today is not that day. I mentioned here that I'm willing to pay the extra 100 gold to heal here. It's going to be one way or the other. Like if I was to heal up top, then I would heal down here for 300. I probably should have done it the other way and healed for 200 up here in Anador, just in case we didn't need to use a second in. We would have saved 100. I'm not happy to see this enemy. He applies Dispel when we hit him, and that's just very annoying due to the fact that any of our buffs, like Milady's Might, is just going to be torn off every time that we attack him. He also gets 2 toughness and a cleanse, so we're just going to be fighting this guy forever, honestly. And then, of course, the root is dangerous, so if the enemies are dangerous, and he's going to do it every other turn. Apply 12 poison. He wants a long fight, and we don't want to be in a long fight with him. And so we definitely don't want to lose 30% of our current health from him, even if it is a campsite. Again, Orb of Annihilation in the opening hand is Suffer. Okay, we're going to get Learn. So I think here I'm pretty much talking about how we're still going to be applying Hex to this boss, even though he's opening with that 2 toughness. Toughness will reduce the amount of damage that you take by 50%. It's like the opposite of vulnerable. And so, since we don't want him to live as long as possible, we're just going to continue to face race him, despite the fact that he's going to be tanky as all hell. And of course, no one was attacking when we had Shield Toss in hand, because we are very good at drawing our opening hands. I wonder if did I use Ice Barrier here? No, I just did damage. Okay. Surprised I didn't use that Hex. Oh, because he's going to cleanse. That's why I didn't use Hex there. So now he's ulting for the root. A little bit of ordering there. And as you can see here, I just lose the might and all the damage associated with it after the first strike there. Since he's going to splash, we go ahead and protect everybody with some immune. It's only going to work for 1 attack, so the minions are still going to be able to deal their damage. Oh, is this when I do this? Certainly hope it isn't. Oof, that's painful to watch. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe because we have the one shield into healing? We thought that it was going to be okay? I don't know. So weird. Pretty sure I was very upset once I realized how badly I screwed up on that. Now here we are just desperately trying to, obviously we're not going to be able to kill the boss this turn, but we're trying to do everything we can. I even popped the Aegis potion just so that the minion can soak 3 damage multiple times. Yep, there it goes. And as you can see, it only loses 3 health each time, which is its normal health. I'm pretty sure that's not working as intended, but thank goodness it does. Here I'm talking about how I have 2 fierce roars in hand, and if I taunt, I'm gonna die, so it's not really working for us. And we're just continuing to face race this boss. It's also very unfortunate that we got the bruiser on the right lane, because it's just gonna deal a truck ton of damage. Thankfully, we drew in too slow there, so we're gonna take less damage. Gonna heal off of that leech. Keep that overcharge going. Again, we're perfectly fine with Leon being in the middle lane here because he can't take status effects like that poison. I think I even debate here. I'm probably talking about how I'm rooted, but I can dash out of it, but then that would put me into that poison, whereas Leon is immune. If Milady gets hit by that poison, she's gonna be toast. So unfortunately, she's gonna have to be stunned on the left lane this turn. Can't move, we might as well just deal damage here. Seriously, Milady is just such a good damage engine. She's so easy to build. That was like 100 damage in a turn. And our mic got removed. That would have been so much damage. Here we got Light of Dawn on the right turn. We're just going to blind everything. You'd love to see it. And we realize that we win. Now we're just trying to get as much healing off of that leech as possible. And you can see there how ridiculous that leech was. especially with a multi-strike attack. Now that everybody's as healed as they can be, I'm gonna blow up the boss. And as you can see, that did 95 damage, and it wasn't even really a lot of overload. Take a look at all these, and we don't want any of them. Everybody's already doing what we need them to do. So we take gold. That's an upgraded Divine Aegis. We'll take that for free. That saves us having to upgrade it in the future. Here we're looking at Flex. It's a retain, so we got it when we need it. The only unfortunate thing about it is that we cannot flex into Slice and Dice because we can only have 5 AP. Otherwise, we're also the only person who uses red damage on Milady, so you would have to use a red card, then flex, then use probably another red card because that's where our multi-strike attacks are. Exposed Weakness, I say, is a very good card, but we don't have trouble getting vulnerable on people. So we're going to flex since we're a multi-strike build. Apologies if I'm talking very fast too, by the way. It's very interesting because I feel rushed, even though... Maybe it's because I'm having to react? I don't know. Here we're just figuring out what we are going to get rid of in order for flex. We want cleave with flex because that's still a lot of damage. It could be a very good finisher. Red card into flex into cleave. We want flame guard because it's our only defense here, really, besides just using blue cards for 2 shield. And I want to use flex with Blade Storm, so I don't want to get rid of that either. So I think we end up getting rid of a dual strike, which is kind of feels bad, man. Maybe it was a lunge. Probably lamenting again here that I have nobody attacking me this turn. A little funny. I don't want to deal with this tree. So I just decided to stack all this DOT on him. And now you get to see how much damage that is actually dealing. A ludicrous amount. Here I'm deciding if I want to kill the middle enemy or just deal any damage to this tree ant here, because I don't want to deal with him. Again, if we're able to deal with shard battles, these normal battles are no contest to us. After that slice and dice, this battle was already over. I'm surprised they didn't vulnerable the left enemy there. But as you can see, that cleave doing ridiculous damage. Pop an Orb of Annihilation there, some more suffer. Use that potion there just to make sure that I had my charge building, but didn't matter because enemy was almost dead anyways. I debate Fan of Knives here, but I think I mentioned the fact that it's also just straight up a worse slice and dice. But considering that it's a neutral legendary as opposed to a character-based legendary, it makes sense. I debate Sky Conduit due to the fact that we have multi-hitting attacks, so shock is pretty good. But I think we just skip for gold here. There's that backlash again. You notice that his passive here is whenever they take 12 damage, they gain 36 shield, which is very annoying. But I believe I decide, but also I point out that ulti for 48. And I'm pretty sure I was about to just fight this enemy normally, but then I believe I decide to boost him because the idea is that Mozebus is going to just one-shot it. This is a terrible first turn. It was very unfortunate that we got the bruiser on the right side again. Having one enemy that stuns is not good. Having two enemies that stun, definitely not good. Here I'm realizing that for whatever reason, anytime that anything says in an area, it doesn't actually affect the primary target. See that Leon doesn't have an immune. I'm almost certain is a bug, because I read the effect text later and it says the primary target and adjacent targets. But yeah, apparently in an area does not work on self buffs. I'll have to test all the cards to see if that's actually the case, but that's... I believe the last video I mentioned that there's a boss that didn't cleanse itself either when it was cleansing an area. Again, Arcane Orb on turn 2. Feels bad, man. Again, these enemies are blinded, so he's not actually taking 101. And again, as much as it hurts, we're pretty much deciding here that we need to face race this thing. Did I really do this again? No. Oh no. How do I get out of this? The minion tech again? I guess so. I could have played Grasping Bog first in order to negate all that damage, but I didn't. Which is a serious misplay on my part. And again, we're pretty much just playing enough to keep that overload engine going. I think I swap here just to keep everybody alive. There's our Orb of Annihilation. So we almost scuffed that one. Don't remember what my reasoning of taking Mind Shock was, but I guess it's more damage. I talk about reverberation and how it's good, but our whole idea is to use Overload to one-shot the boss, so that's not our play. Brilliant Skin can only be played on Mozebus, so we don't want him taking hits. So Crusader Aura is the last one, and power is 50% more damage, so it's exactly what we're looking for. We'll have to fit it into Leon's deck, but it widens the gap, or shortens the gap that we need to hit in order to one-shot bosses with Orb of Annihilation. Here I talk about how I'm going to take this campfire just off the panel here. That one right there. So we're just going to hit 20 on both of them, and it's going to full heal our party pretty much. Okay, I think I understand now. We took out Cold Snap because we're getting ready for our bossing here. And Cold Snap's not going to do anything versus the boss, so we just go ahead and we put Mind Shock in there for another source of damage. We upgrade that Divine Aegis, and then I think we fit Crusader Aura here by getting rid of Crusader Strike, which was just in there so that we could upgrade our ultimate. That's a feels bad, man. However, we did get our artifact shop. So we're looking and we saw that we needed one for Mozebus and one for Leon. Here I'm talking about that shrine that we saw before that gave us one backlash each turn. This would allow us to stack that up to 3 on one person. If we had this, I would have taken the thorns, but we didn't. So instead, we're taking a look at Claw Maldorn, which we don't actually expect our minions to last very long versus the boss, so it's pretty much just Tome of Clarity. This is a very good shot, minus of course Agar's Dominion showing up again. I'm immediately wondering about how our minion shrine interacts with this artifact here, Dragonheart. And so we definitely buy it just to figure out how that works as far as science. But I also want to buy Nature's Might, and that would be all of our money. I almost buy it, and I'm telling us that we're going to put it on Leon, but then I think I realized that he actually doesn't generate a lot of shields, really. We go ahead and we take a look at his deck. And we're like, okay, yeah, Intercept's like his best. Fierce Roar definitely does it, but it's not really a lot of damage. So we go ahead and we buy Dragonheart and just leave. Then Mozebus gets the Tome of Clarity so that we don't have to upgrade it on him. Or level up and give him a +1 draw. And we take another shard battle. Got enough for 2 heals at the end. We're feeling very good. We're also taking a look here on what exactly we want to get, and it's definitely another draw on Leon. I mentioned here that I didn't realize that it was possible to see the same elite twice. And I am not willing. I just want to fight him and get him over with. Luke Cage isn't worth dealing with that Thorns again. And so here we see, again, Orb of Annihilation in first hand. That's... We see that the Soldier of Aluna there is affected by his Dragon Heart, but it's only the one in his lane, so that makes it not very good at all. If it affected all the minions, I would have been very happy to keep this on him. That would have been a lot of healing had we actually needed it. And again, same plan as usual. We're just space racing this elite. I say that I should have used Flame Guard before I went ahead and dashed in there. Because that would have been an extra 5. The interesting thing about Flame Guard is that it could be used on a red hero that doesn't want to use their ultimate, but has a large charge, like Aurora. Her nuke stun has a 10 charge, so that'd be a lot of shielding. Sorry for the silence, there's not really much to talk about here, it's just business as usual. I believe I mentioned at that point that it's very good that Leon has that cannot be affected by statuses. I definitely underrated that a little bit because I was also afraid that status effects also meant buffs. No, look, our Orb of Annihilation. Game's done. I'm checking here to make sure if we can't heal anything. I'm pretty sure we can't because my lady... Oh? Yeah, she wouldn't have been able to ulti, most likely. Didn't even have enough action points. Again, our relics are set, so we just skip. I believe... Oh, I thought that we took that. Never mind. Here we definitely take dual wield. Because of the way that Milady scales, we definitely want to be able to play more cards. And having them cost one less will actually enable us to do stuff like play flex and slice and dice. Here I'm talking about how we want to try and grind out more shard battles, but we got to be careful because these boss tokens are going to keep spawning since we're in Cataclysm, and we do not want to get cut off and have to fight Aranax, the Spider Queen, especially because we've been gearing up in order to take on the Sun King instead. So knowing that, I think I just decide, you know what? I'm gonna go down to this town here, upgrade a couple of cards, fight the boss. Because getting cut off there would have probably meant the run would have ended. So we're looking at our 2-win condition, or a 1-win condition, and 2 cards that will best help that. We're looking at Crusader Strike and Archive. So those are our 2 upgrades. Crusader Strike, of course, just giving more power. Because it's cheaper, I'm definitely going to be able to play it. And Archive because it helps us draw through our deck. Theoretically, when we get an early Orb of Annihilation, or if we're able to play it, or more accurately, if we get an early Orb of Annihilation, it helps us accrue up Overcharge to get a better payout the next time we get it, because each one gives us locked overload. So again, these Sun Discs are giving the boss 50% or 25% damage mitigation each for a total of 50%. So the odds of us actually being able to do any significant damage to him is minimal. But as you can see, we definitely want to go for those first. At least get rid of one. And in the meanwhile, they're going to splash us. He's going to splash us. It's going to be a lot of damage. And here you even see the boss is immune to CC whenever I try to blind him. So he's still going to hit the team. I decide I want to keep these minions alive as long as possible. I also want to point out that minion on the left doing 4 damage a turn, that's no joke. especially if we can keep it alive. I point out here that that stasis after 4 hits includes me putting DOTs on him. Then I decide to stack DOTs on this thing instead. Besides, he's getting damage reduction anyways. You may also notice that the boss's resistances change according to their passive. So even if you're going to try and one-shot him through this this 4 hits to stasis, you'd have to work twice as hard if you were trying to do it with yellow damage, or an extra 2 times as much because of the fact that he's getting that damage resistance from the sun discs. I make another terrible mistake with the taunt here. I must be just used to using Shinzo, because I've noticed like 3 times in this run, I just set Leon up to die. I don't know what I'm checking for. To see if Pummel will kill? Pummel won't kill. I definitely don't give him the draw because I don't want to draw Orb of Annihilation at this point. It would be terrible. So we just take the damage. And we draw into Orb of Annihilation there, but it's at the end of our deck, so this is actually quite good. Because if we play it here, we still have the chance to draw it later, so long as it's not at the start of the deck. Now this boss on this phase just cleanses debuffs. He's not immune to debuffs, so I'm still able to put that vulnerable on him. I'm calculating here on how to keep Leon alive. Tell you what though, that immune is coming in clutch on the other 2 people that it actually works on. And boom, there goes it. Now he alternates immune, so I just need to bop him with one more skill. We choose lunge because it only attacks once. Now he's exposed for the one shot. Boom. Just Orb of Annihilation things. Now, I talk about the one power here, but obviously we went to Mozebus to get Fury because that's where we're getting a lot of our overcharge from. So we take Ceremonial Queef here because we want to be able to have Leon actually gain shield. I'm mentioning here that this pretty much is the exact card that we need for our win condition. If we play a lot of archives and have a bunch of locked overload, and then we bumble into Orb of Annihilation, we can just use Amplify Magic to unlock all of our overload. It's retained, so we'll use it when we have it, and then we also gain 3 overload. It's perfect for Orb of Annihilation, basically. Here I say we don't have burn, so we don't need Infernal Lash. Broadsword, we're taking a look at all the cards that we have that are melee. Cards that are melee, excuse me. Oh, we're putting on Ceremonial Queef. We're taking off Dragonheart because, again, it only works on the one lane. And here I think we point out that, like, all of his cards are yellow. So he's just going to get more shields. Which, due to his heirloom, means that he's also going to spot heal for a little bit more. We're looking at Broadsword on Milady because, taking a look at what we're going to get rid of, we end up getting rid of Wood Chime, which is a bit spiced, but I guess I decide that we're going to stick with the Radiant Banner. Bold Strategy Con, let's see if it works out for him. But we're taking a look at all of our skills that are melee, because it'll apply on the first melee strike. So Slice and Dice is melee, so it'll crit. And that alone pretty much makes me say, okay, yep, we're grabbing this. Because even our ulti is ranged. Like, worst case scenario, if we don't have anything good, we use it on a double strike. Which is, again, still pretty good to crit with. And it's very weird that I decide to keep in the Radiant Banner instead of Wood Chime. Because, again, the one thing I'm worried about on this boss is just that Mozebus or the Vulnerable, which is Milady, dies. I see Obsidian Shiv and I cry. I also talk about how Vampiric Scepter is extremely good. But we can't afford any of this stuff, so it doesn't matter. Here, I can't skip for money, so I have to take one. But I'm taking a look at the cost of all these cards, and I am debating a second Orb of Annihilation now, but I eventually decide to instead go for the Deflective Shield. I think we're trying to decide what exactly we get rid of here in order to put in a Deflective Shield, and we decide on Judgment. The reason being is that theoretically, Judgment only heals 4, whereas Deflective Shield gives us 4 shield when we use it, and immune, so it's worth more health. We get Purple Akan here. I have not fought him really enough to even know, like, exactly, like, you can see what his phases are here. But, like, what's actually going on in the fight, I could not tell you. But I am stating here, like, all of these, the only thing that's going to stop us from one-shotting is the cannot be affected by debuffs. That's not a cleanse like the last boss. That is cannot be affected by more debuffs. So if I'm able to overstack the vulnerable, that won't stop us. And otherwise, him actually being purple resistant on the turn that we have Orb of Annihilation will stop us. And he starts out swinging. Don't know what I expected. But we have Lightbringer. If we actually use that. Also, turn 1 Orb of Annihilation, not what you want to see on this boss. So immediately I know this is going to be a long fight. We're gonna go ahead and just take that extra damage because he currently has the deal 4 damage whenever you play a card. Or I think it's when you draw a card, actually. And we'll just take that damage and get some good vulnerable out there. Blind the hands. Now, of course, Akan himself cannot be blinded because he's a boss, so I'm debating just saving as much health as possible. And I decided to go for it. It'll also keep those minions alive so that I can gain more fury for the vulnerable. And now he can't be affected by debuffs, which is kind of feels bad, man, because the whole idea to do that was to get more vulnerable on him. You can't even put these hexings on him. Probably a little early to use that, but we went ahead and we used it anyways. Again, the idea is that he's going to splash the other 2 for power every turn, which is 50% more damage. And they're our primary damage dealers, so we want them to have that. But are we going to have it now when Orb of Annihilation shows up? Odds are likely, but maybe not. Got Milady doing Milady things right now. Here we decide to take the damage and then realize, oh wait, of course we can't weaken the boss due to cannot be debuffed. So I just took 4 damage for no reason. And then we got weakened. Calculating how to mitigate the most damage here. I'm surprised I do that. Because I'm trying to stack up as much overload as possible. Yo, this is weird watching your content. I see, like, all the red flags. Got lots of books, though. Get learned. I'm honestly wondering, how do we get so many books? It's only supposed to be giving us 3. We got so many books. Look at this overload, though. And at this point, I am legitimately scared that I'm going to draw Orb of Annihilation, so I think that's why I stopped right there with very little health. We want to use any red skill before that to do more damage. Because now we get the triple might, and that's a lot of damage. That +4 shield a turn barely lives. We were so lucky we found that item. Okay, we still do not have Orb of Annihilation, but thankfully everyone's looking like they're safe. I don't know why I'm spending overcharge. It's not like I'm gonna kill it. Oh, you know what it is? I'm probably... It would be equivalent if I get the ulti. I think that's what I'm looking for. Stacking that vulnerable means that we definitely have it next turn. And here, there's something weird happens where I deal 0 damage to it, and I'm looking through the logs here. By the way, very good logs in this game. However, it does not tell you why it just resists all 36 of my damage from my ult. Explain. I'm looking here, like, is there anything that would cause that? He doesn't have anywhere near enough resilience. He is fire resistant, but he shouldn't have taken no damage. Again, buggy game. It's so buggy that the bug report button down at the bottom right does not work. At least for me. Otherwise, I would have pretty much filled their inbox. Anyways. If you need a spoiler, there's the Orb of Annihilation right there. See, the best thing about Mozebus is he's a Super Saiyan, and we're about to end Frieza's saga. People of Arzu, I need your energy! You gotta believe me, that joke was funnier the first time. Anyways, thank you for watching the run. Hopefully it wasn't too scuffed with having to voice over commentary the run. If you enjoyed the run, be sure to give it a like. Otherwise, if you have any comments, misplay alerts, feedback, be sure to leave that in the comments down below. And until next time, we'll catch you around.